Thank you for your patience. We'll ask everyone to please be seated at this time. We're about to begin the services for Mr. Bernard Turek. Just a gentle reminder, folks, for those of you that are present here in the chapel, because we are live streaming the service this morning. If you're in the chapel and you have a cell phone with you, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. Officiating this morning is Rabbi Jeffrey Weil.
In the Bible, when something, can you hear me okay? Okay. In the Bible, when something calamitous would happen, something shocking, something sad, our biblical forebears would do the act of kriya, the act of tearing their garments, really exposing their vulnerable, wounded hearts at the moment of sadness. And so we have that tradition today, that ritual of kriya, of tearing, and the mourners are wearing the official mourners, not merely the emotional mourners, of which there are more, but the official halachic mourners are wearing the kriya ribbons. Those who are Sharon, Debbie, Rachel, and Bobby, the immediate relations of Bernie Turek, I ask you to rise now, and we'll recite a blessing together. I'll come to you, reciting the blessing that acknowledges God as the Dayan Ha'emet, the judge of truth. Adonai, mi agor b'ohalecha, mi ishkon b'charkotchecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo. The words of the psalmist, Psalm 15, saying, Adonai, eternal God, who is it that shall dwell, who shall have the merit to dwell in your sanctuary, and who shall abide upon your holy mountain? It would be one who lives with integrity. It is one who does what is right. It is one who speaks the truth in his heart, who does not slander others, who does not do evil to others. It is one who would not exploit the vulnerable, but would rather help them. Whoever does such things in this life, that's the person who shall abide upon God's holy mountain. Friends, we gather this morning, sadly, to remember and pay tribute to, celebrate the life of, and say farewell to Bernard Turek, who was such a person. He lived with integrity. He spoke a wise truth, and he lifted up others. Such a person really has the merit to dwell upon God's holy mountain. Our sacred scriptures have something to say really amazingly for every moment in our lives, the happy times and the sad times as well. And so please turn to the handouts that you received when you came in. The inside panel, the 23rd Psalm, we will read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The third chapter of Kohelet, or Ecclesiastes, these verses are well known from popular song, and they convey this idea, sometimes, maybe more than sometimes, difficult to accept, to fully understand that everything in this world happens at an appropriate time, that there's a purpose for everything that unfolds in this world, and sometimes this life really challenges that notion. And yet our scriptures and our tradition guide us in that direction. La kol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim, et laledet ve'et lamut, et lata'at ve'et la'kor natua, et laharog ve'et lirpo, et lifrotz ve'et livnot. There's a season for everything, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time for planting, a time for reaping, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for love and a time for hate, a time to embrace and a time when we must refrain from our embraces, a time for hurting, a time for healing, a time to laugh, a time to weep, a time to dance, a time for wailing, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to speak, and a time to keep silent. And so we take advantage of this opportunity to speak, to share words in memory of Bernie Turek. I begin with this week's Torah portion, Chukat. In this week's Torah portion, there's the sort of the ending or the passing of a generation, and Aaron dies. Aaron was Moses' older brother. He had led a very good, successful life. He was the first high priest of the Israelites, and his life really was exemplary. But it was not without sorrow. Aaron had lost two sons, Nadav and Abihu, tragically. Despite his sorrow, Aaron's sorrow, and indeed perhaps through his sorrow, he maintained an enormous, magnificent spirit. He was a peacemaker. He made peace between people, and he connected with people individually in ways that even according to our sages, Moses did not. The Israelites marveled when Aaron's staff blossomed miraculously with almond blossoms. He was just a beloved figure. And when he died, in this week's Torah portion, the Israelites mourned. You mourn now, for you have lost someone who also possessed a great spirit. And testament to that is this standing room only crowd here this morning, which is really amazing. Bernie Turek was himself a leader and a teacher. He had this great, big, beautiful presence and spirit. And you all mourn, for he was beloved. Beloved by family, beloved by friends, beloved by his employees, beloved by anyone whose path crossed his. His life, like Aaron's staff, blossomed. Bernie was the high priest of optimism, the inspirational Jampa. He was the patriarch with a ponytail, the terrific Turek. And yes, he, like Aaron, he knew sorrow. You all have known sorrow. And through that sorrow, he remained the truly loving man, teacher, and role model to his final day. He was the son of Rose and Al, younger brother to Bobby. The family moved to West Rogers Park And Bernie was a track star at Senn High School, and he was a city champion. And then he headed downstate for college, University of Illinois. He joined Phi Sigma Delta. He majored in physical education. What he studied, what he majored in, was not of tremendous significance for him, for he knew what his career would be. He knew that he'd enter the family hardware business. A few years after graduation, Bernie was set up with a girl, a certain Sharon Buttman. Who knew? Who could have predicted that this cute guy that she had remembered from school would one day be there at her door for a date? They were set up. It was a good first date for sure, but a little strange. For despite her lovely white dress, Bernie asked Sharon to help him carry the 3-part canoe, a klepper. Sharon was expecting something a little grander than that. On the other hand, as he would say, he picked her up from a 1-bathroom apartment. So the 1-bathroom apartment and the 3-piece canoe, they sort of balance each other out. It's like a perfect match. They went on a few dates, followed by Bernie going to fulfill his time with the National Guard. Then he came back, they dated just for a little while longer, and they were soon married. It was a wedding on a Tuesday. It's an auspicious day of the week for Jewish weddings. It was January in Chicago. The snowstorm on that day and the cold may not have seemed auspicious, but it was auspicious, for it led to 61 years of marriage and to this beautiful family. Bernie and Sharon, Debbie, Jory, and Rachel, they first lived in Niles, in Golden Acres in Niles, and then they moved up to Northbrook. Bernie was an extremely hard-working man. It was a 7-day-a-week job for him. But on Sunday nights, it was family night. They would go out to restaurants in the city, on Wells, Lincoln, and even, interestingly, to that Hare Krishna place. On school breaks, his daughters would be put to work in the warehouse, often a cold warehouse, doing inventory, which often meant counting screws. I would say that builds character. Later, all three would work there professionally, as would Sharon, the schlepper, 3 days a week. Having such a truly hard-working father, really committed to his work, was just part of life for the three of them, Debbie, Jory, and Rachel, but there was never any doubt. It was not even a question. It didn't even occur to them that it was anything, that hard work was anything other than the desire for and his dedication to his family. He was an extraordinarily devoted family man. In fact, his love for them was the impetus for this hard work. And as he loved others, which he did abundantly, he was loved abundantly as well. Loved by this family, of course, and by everyone. His employees loved him. They were the extended family within the business that bore the family name. Folks in Greektown loved Bernie. Animals loved Bernie. He had an affinity for pets, particularly Thunder, their German Shepherd. And Balfour, too. Balfour, too, the dedicated companion and caretaker over the last few months, felt this about Bernie. Understood Bernie and really he referred to Bernie as a kind and loving man. This was Bernie Turek. He touched people. He enriched others. He taught lessons, both practical lessons and great wisdom. He possessed somehow, and this is a rare thing, he possessed the wisdom of the grounded and the wisdom of the lofty as well, and that is rare. It was also the wisdom that understood the value of relationships, first and foremost. He was attuned to these most important people in his life, especially as Jampa, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, to Jeremy and Kira, Allie, Josh, and Dylan, and of course Dina and little Noah, very handsome baby, whom Bernie was delighted to be able to meet. He maintained close contact with his grandchildren, And he would, when they were talking on the phone or whenever, deflect questions that they might ask about him to really ask about them. He was such a proud Jampa that Jampa was his license plate. He was also a loving and clearly beloved father-in-law to Mark. Bernie knew he was lucky. He would marvel about his luck. He would say things like, I have my kids, I have my grandkids. He would say, I have my wife. And then he'd say, your mother is the best, referring to Sharon. This is 100% positivity. Positivity which he still grasped and held on to even while bearing in his heart, as you all have, as I mentioned before, or referred to before, the deep sadness of Jory's passing. Aaron in Torah, the high priest Aaron, he was silent about his own loss of Nadav and Abihu, his sons. But Bernie was not like that. He was taking a wiser course in sorrow. He was open about it. He talked about his daughter. He attended support group for grieving fathers. This openness about sadness, I think that's a lesson as well. He also wisely embraced this wonderful world, complicated, wild, wonderful world. He said yes to life. He said yes to life's experiences. He and Sharon embarked first very early in their marriage on a tour of Europe, $5 a day tour of Europe. Their return trip was on the famous SS United States. Many voyages remained for them. The couple that once lugged a three-piece canoe on that first date ultimately cruised the whole world, reaching more than 100 countries. That's really getting the most out of this life. Our sages taught something very obvious and yet profound. Mourn, they counseled, at a time of mourning. Rejoice at a time of rejoicing. And you mourn this family. You mourn at this time of mourning as you should, for you have lost someone who you knew and you really understood, and you expressed it to me so beautifully, so really extraordinary. And the pain of the loss is real. And yet, in the midst of this mourning, may there also be some rejoicing. For not many are really lucky enough. Just as he was lucky, you are lucky. For not many are lucky enough to have in their lives one like Bernard Turek. One with a heart so kind and generous. One so full of love. One who exuded an infectious optimism. One for whom the experience of living and the richness of this world were gifts that we should all enjoy and share. And one who offered abundant wisdom. May the life he led long guide you and your paths through life. Zichrono livracha. May his memory always be for blessing. Amen. Honored first to call forward to share some words about her father, Debbie.
Hey, Dad. And I know if you were here, you'd respond back, hey, Deborah. I have imagined being up here so many times. To say you've had your fair share of health issues is an understatement. You were on dialysis, had bladder, prostate, and colon cancer, along with various broken bones. Each time you would go into the hospital, you had us scared it was going to be your last. We joked that you were the cat with 27 lives, because, Dad, you always bounced back. Unfortunately, this summer you were in the hospital twice. The first time, when I sat with you, you said, "I feel my time is closing in, and that's okay. I want you to know that I have absolutely no regrets. I've had the most wonderful life. Your mom is the absolute best. She takes such good care of me. I don't know what I would do without her. I had you, Jory, Rachel, Marky, all my grandchildren, and little Noe. I won't dwell on my dad's health complications because he never let them define him. Some might say he lived with the glass half full, but he would say his glass was overflowing. He never once let anything slow him down, and everything was always terrific. As you hear from all of us here today, I can assure you there will be a common theme. Our dad was the most kind, wonderful, full-spirited, generous, loving, enthusiastic, incredibly positive man around. He was truly loved by all that knew him and had the good fortune to meet him. One of my parents' friends said to me the other day, he was one of a kind and you will never meet another man like him. My dad just wanted to be happy, and it was important that those around him felt the same way. I will never be able to encapsulate in just a few minutes how much my dad meant to me and all of us here, but you will have an incredible picture once we are all done speaking. He and my mom were married for 61 beautiful years. All my life, I never heard them call each other by their first names. It was always Honey, the enduring name that they had for each other. And she looks beautiful in the outfit that he loved to see her in. As the rabbi mentioned, my dad worked hard, 7 days a week for our growing up years, mainly at Turek and Sons, working with his father. He worked so hard because he wanted us all to have what we needed. Considering he owned a hardware store, we never had one tool in our own house. Jory, Rachel, and I spent many summers, vacations, and even post-college working for him. My mom was also on the payroll. She was his delivery girl. She made deliveries to construction sites all over Chicago. I'll say I also loved all our lunch breaks at all the Greek restaurants in town. Dad, you ran your business the good old-fashioned way, where a handshake and your word was your bond. You were the most honest man around. Another theme you might hear today is that my dad loved to eat. He never met a buffet he did not like. Oy, you should have seen him at the Chinese all-you-can-eat buffets. Unbelievable. These past few years in Florida, he would want to come eat at our club in only as long as we could go to the buffet. I swear he ate more than his weight. Everyone would be done, and he would still want more. How he fit all that food in his little body, I will never know. Even on Friday, he wanted me to pick him up pickled garlic, olives, and mushrooms. And when I talked to him about 40 minutes before he passed out, he was waiting in the drive-thru to get his Chick-fil-A. I felt my dad was a bit like MacGyver. He never met a problem he couldn't figure out how to fix. The fix also included a lesson. Once my parents had a very heavy stone bench in their backyard that needed to be moved. My idea was to find someone to pay to move it. But oh no, not my dad. He decided this needed to be a lesson in hydraulics for me. We had to go to Harbor Freight, buy a hydraulic lift, dollies, and a number of other tools to lift this bench. Can't say I would do it again this way, but what a fun time and what a learning experience I had with him. So my dad loved to throw parties. There were countless ones. For my mom's birthdays, the white party, dressed like a gangster party, and a party just to have a party. Many in this room had been privy to his parties. He always made sure everyone left with a gift. His favorite was to pass out raffle tickets to each person, and he would bring all kinds of gifts. If he called your number, you could pick your wrapped item. Some were great gift cards or huge bottles of liquor. And boy, did he have a lot of liquor. But you might get a roll of toilet paper or a box of Kleenex. Everyone so enjoyed his generosity, and it was a treat to have a front row seat to his pleasure and enjoyment in doing this. When Jeremy and Dina got married almost 2 years ago, my dad was floating on cloud nine. He was in an even happier zone, if that was possible. Although he was in his wheelchair, he spent the night on the dance floor. He was spinning around, surrounded by his family and our friends. He was so full of energy. Finally, at midnight, my mom had to say it was time to go upstairs, and he probably could have stayed up later than me. For his 89th birthday this past January, at one of his favorite restaurants, Abe and Louie's, after there were toasts shared about him, he wanted to thank everyone that came. But instead of just a thank you, he went around the room and had something nice and positive to say about each person at the table. It was ad-libbed and off the top of his head. My dad didn't like to focus on himself, and every detail in his life in our lives was important. He was still sharp as a tack with an incredible memory. He continued to do all his math problems in his head, and don't even try to challenge him on any World War I or World War II history details. He knew it all. My last story I will share about my dad was when Mark and I were building our house. Nothing gave my dad more pleasure during that time than to come and visit the house during the whole construction process. He would go there daily, sometimes sitting for hours in his car watching, or other times pulling out his walker, a folding chair, and a Barnaby's pizza, and would sit outside watching the process. And I would get a detailed update daily. He'd say, "Hey, did you know the footings are in? Oh, they poured the concrete today. And you should see the trusses are in. And look at all the lumber coming down the street, and oh, those baffles." Sometimes I had no clue what he was talking about, but it gave him such pleasure. He was my personal GC. I also, as well, want to thank Balford, who took such good care of you for the past few months. He came back with my dad from Florida and was such a wonderful companion for my dad. After you passed on Friday, we all came back to the house to be together. All of a sudden, Josh says, "Look over there by the trees. There's a red cardinal." In our family, a red cardinal represents Jory. Jory wanted us to know that she was here for us and that she was ready to have you join her dad. We know how much you have missed Jory for the past 9 years, and she is going to be with you now and always. I love you so very much. You meant the world to me, and our loss is immeasurable. You have left a beautiful legacy as a husband, father, and Jampa. Our hearts are broken. Lila Tov, Dad.
Thank you, Debbie, so much. Those beautiful words. Rachel?
First, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who have come here to celebrate my dad. We are humbled and grateful. I'd also like to say a thank you to Balford, my dad's caregiver for the last 2 months. Not only have you taken the most wonderful care of him, but he also considered you a friend. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. I like to call my dad Pop. He liked to call me Ray. Every day it was, "Hi, Pop," and he'd say, "Hey, Ray." Those 2 words and how he said it made me feel loved, seen, heard, confident, happy, and all those other feels you feel when the person on the other line is your best friend. I can stand up here and confidently say he was my best friend. But I also know that he was my mom's best friend. He was Debbie's best friend, and Jeremy's best friend, and Kira's best friend, and Allie, Josh, and Dylan's best friend, and probably the best friend to many of you here. He made us all feel so special, so loved, that each one of us saw him as our best friend. My dad was my North Star. I looked to him not just for guidance on how to do things, but I looked for him to show me how to be a better person. He wanted me to live my life the best way that I could, and I hope, Pop, that I've made you proud. My dad instilled in me a love of travel. The farther, the better. Every trip I took, he couldn't wait to hear about the sights, the sounds, the food, and the people. His kindness and generosity were unparalleled. His joy for life was unmatched. He had 15 lives, and he never took it for granted. He would say every day was a gift, and put a smile on his face, and he truly believed it. But what meant the most to my dad was family. His love for my mom was never ending. They met, got engaged 6 weeks later, married 4 months later, and had 61 wonderful years together. About 10 years ago, when my dad broke his femur and he needed to start dialysis, my mom really started to take care of him. She just didn't take care of him. She was there for him every day for everything. Every day he would say, "Your mother is terrific. Your mom is the best. She can't do enough for me." He truly loved her until the day he died. I don't think they would ever have regret for the things they didn't do, just happiness in the crazy amount of things that they did do together. Mom, Dad would not have survived as long as he did without you by his side. He loved you madly, deeply. When I was growing up, the years were not always easy. Money was tight. My dad worked 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, solely so he could provide for his family. My mama raised us alone, and with 3 rambunctious girls, that could not have been easy. Some kids may resent their parents for not being around when they are growing up, but not the Turek girls. When we became adults, all 3 of us happily worked for our dad. Debbie, in and out while she was getting her dietitian's degree. Me for 3 years when I quit practicing law until Allie was born. And Jory for 10 years until Turek & Sons was sold. Every day at Turek & Sons was a gift. Not only did my mom, dad, uncle, my sisters, and for that matter, any other family member that needed a job, work there, but all the employees had been with my dad for so long, they were family to us. His love for Debbie, Jory, and I shone brightly, whether we were with him or he was talking about us to anyone and everyone he knew. When Jory died, my dad was devastated. He took it upon himself to learn about mental illness and joined a grief group to help himself cope. Anytime he was in town, he would come with me to visit her. I know their 2 souls have reconnected, and he's smiling that he gets to be with Jory again. Pop was proud of our accomplishments and also sat with us when life didn't go the way we planned. He would sit, listen, and be a shoulder to cry on when we needed. He knew, somehow, some way, we would be okay. My dad also loved Debbie's husband, Mark. He thought of him as a son and was overjoyed with the love that he saw between Debbie and Mark. And when they gave him his first grandson, not just first grandchild, but that it was a boy, my dad went hog wild. Anything and everything that he could do for Jeremy, my dad did. And then he did it for Kira, and then Allie, and then Josh, and then Dylan. It was as if my dad's whole body became a heart filled with so much love that he could share it with family. It was amazing that not only were our kids close to him, their friends were close to him and knew everything about him, and their friends loved him like he was their own Jampa. Jeremy, Kira, Allie, Josh, and Dylan, Jampa will live on through you. The stories that you tell about him will keep his soul alive. He showed us by example. He is in each one of you. He was, is, and will always be so proud of you. Being your Jampa was the best thing that ever happened to him. We love to say that my dad was penny wise, dollar dumb. He would spend hundreds on a meal and not think twice about it. But when I didn't buy a return ticket on the Van Gelder to go back to college and had to pay $3 extra, I never heard the end of it. One year, the day after Easter, my dad came home with $300 worth of Easter candy because it was half off. We had a 6-foot chocolate Easter bunny in the middle of our dining room, and we ate Peeps for weeks. He was stubborn. When he got an idea in his head, you couldn't talk him out of it. When he wanted to take a second sailing trip around the world, he told my mother, "We are going around the world again, 4 more months on a boat." Only problem was that on the first world cruise, they could only afford an inside cabin, and my mom had claustrophobia. And she said, "No way am I going on a boat again." He kept saying, "We are going, we are going, we are going," and she only relented when my dad got her an outside cabin with a balcony. He also had a different sense of what was funny. One year for my mom's birthday, he had a party for her at Cafe Lucci. My dad got it in his head that instead of hiring entertainment, he would be the entertainment. No one knew his plan, but all of a sudden, the lights came down and a striptease song came on. Out of the door came a person with a shower curtain contraption around them that had been made by attaching different pipes together. As the shower curtain sashayed around the dance floor, a shirt got thrown out, pants got thrown out, Socks got thrown out. Underwear got thrown out. No one knew if my dad was actually naked under there. He was fully dressed with his pants rolled up, but he thought it was the funniest thing in the whole world. Needless to say, my mother was mortified. After he went into business for himself, we began to take exotic vacations. One year, he took us to Jamaica to a club called Hedonism. He had been there before, but he didn't seem to mind that it was an adults-only club with a nude beach, and I was 17 years old. Men in their 80s would get in the hot tub naked with me, and my dad would look at me and shrug. His love for his friends knew no boundaries. He loved going out with them, fishing with them, seeing shows with them, throwing dinner parties for them, in which he would buy everyone a gift, even if it was his own birthday party. He would have Debbie and I wrap each gift, get raffle tickets, pass out a raffle ticket to each person. He would call out the number and make each person open the gift in front of everybody. Some got a good bottle of vodka, some got the cheap bottle of vodka, some got the $100 Let Us Entertain You gift cards, and some got a roll of toilet paper. The toilet paper gift really cracked him up. Every Tuesday for the last 15 years, when they were in town, him and his friend Ronnie Kaplan would go for lunch. It wasn't just lunch. They would drive all over Illinois and Wisconsin to find places to eat. My dad always said he never had a bad meal. Every week was a new adventure. Even if GPS was around back then, my dad would not have been able to use it. But Ronnie knew that no matter where in Kishinev they were, my dad would find a way to get them home. Sometimes it was hours after they said they'd be home, with my mother scared to death and screaming at him. About 6 years ago, they both agreed that they couldn't drive that far anymore by themselves, and thus I was invited to join, and we dubbed it Tuesdays with Bernie. Soon after, Chris started coming, and I can honestly say that I had more fun with the three of them than I do with most people. Some of the best memories I have. My dad didn't do nice things for accolades or acknowledgement. He did these things because at the very core, he was truly a good man. He tried to see the best in others. He believed in himself, his family, his friends, and that always carried him through. To me, he was the greatest. I love you, Pop, and I will miss you terribly.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Another beautiful tribute. Jeremy and Kira.
Born January 10th, 1935, Bernard Jack Turek, known as Bernie to some, and about 60 years later, officially received the title of Jampa. Jampa did not want to have the standard grandfather name. He wanted to be called Gramps. Being the firstborn grandchild, it was my honor to give him his new name, and I couldn't pronounce Gramps. Jamps is what came out, and from there, Jampa was born. You're welcome, Jampa. Throughout my life, Jampa had a significant impact, and he taught me several life lessons that I would like to share with you all today. My earliest memories start out at Jampa's hardware store that donned his last name, Turek & Sons. The days I got to visit the hardware store were special to me. It was where Jampa gave me my first car, a Milwaukee Tool mini go-kart, where I roamed the aisles to see which street signs I could bring back to hang in my bedroom, and where I would learn many life lessons from Jampa over lunch. This may sound familiar. The first one being, never say no to what is on the menu. If you don't eat it, I will. Yes, this is a lesson I've taken very seriously and will eat whatever my wife or son will not eat or do not finish. My next profound memory with Jampa is at the Volo Classic Car Museum. He taught me about the cars at the museum, and before we left, we went to the gift shop to pick out a few model cars for me to take home. That day, Jampa's love for cars fell onto me. We started my first car collection, which leads me to life lesson number 2. Never take the cars out of the boxes so they hold their value. Jampa, if you can hear me, I think the cars are still worth $19.99, but I listened to you and never took them out of their boxes. and I can't wait to share them and our tradition with my son. Lesson number 3. What is important to your loved ones should be important to you. As I grew older and started playing hockey, Jampa took my dad and me to Ron's skate shop to help me pick out my first composite hockey stick. A 2-piece blue Z-bubble with a Joe Sakic curve. This was my most memorable stick and effectively the stick I learned my best hockey trait with, my shot. Thank you for that, Jampa. And though Jampa did not play hockey, his Mercedes SL 500 made an appearance in the 4th of July parade as the lead car for the Blue Hawks. He never missed any events that were important to his grandchildren. Growing up, we would spend spring break in Florida at Bubby and Jampa's house. During those trips, I'd realized just how cool my Jampa was. He was in his 70s at the time and was willing to ride the Dueling Dragons with me and my mom. For those who don't know, it's a roller coaster that has multiple loops and corkscrews that flip you upside down. How many grandfathers would be willing to ride that? My Jampa knew I wanted to go, so of course to him it was important that he ride it with me. Family meant everything to Jampa, and being there meant the world to me. Jampa was the person I wanted by my side to sign the ketubah on my wedding day. This was an obvious choice to me because of how much I looked up to him. He threw my wife and me a dinner before the big day to celebrate our upcoming wedding day and showered us with irreplaceable gifts. One being a bottle of whiskey he and Bubby bought on their honeymoon. He knew how important my upcoming wedding was to me and went out of his way to make it even more special. That is who Jampa was. Life lesson number 4. Never judge a book by its cover. Traveling was a passion of his. He and Bubby set to travel the world on a cruise where they would be gone for months. I was always excited for them to return and see what they had brought back for us. Jampa and Bubby began to bring me back shot glasses from all over the world. This foreshadows our trip to Mexico years later, where I would challenge my Jampa to a tequila drinking contest. Each of us had to take 3 shots, and Jampa was done with all 3 before I could finish one. Those who know Jampa well know he prefers his root beer floats over his alcohol. So this loss came at a surprise. He told me, "I thought you could drink because you were in college." I thought I could too, but apparently not. Life lesson number 5, and the last one I have, life is what you make it. Every day over the last 8 years, I would call Jampa on my way to work, making sure I chatted with him before dialysis. This is where I really learned the type of man Jampa was. With all life had thrown at him, he could have been angry, upset, or frustrated, but he never once was. No matter the circumstances, he was terrific. He was terrific because he had Bubby, his daughters, his grandchildren, and recently great-grandchild. As I continued to grow older, I looked forward and cherished these phone calls and more. They lasted up until the day before he passed away. I will miss these phone calls very much. Jampa, I had a really hard time writing this as it is impossible to capture the amazing person you were. All I can say is thank you for everything. I am so lucky I had the opportunity to be your grandson. I love and miss you.
Thank you. Beautiful, meaningful tributes. Thank you. Allie. Oh, okay. Allie and Josh and Dylan. All 3? Okay. Allie, Josh, and Dylan.
There were a ton of different ways I could have written this. As Jeremy said, there's no way to capture the type of grandpa that he was. But to have had 23 years with Jampa made me the most special person in the whole world. So I wanted to share 23 life lessons, learnings that Jampa's taught me and probably most people in this room that I think has made us all better people. If you want something, you have to work hard for it. Your education is never complete. Jampa was almost persistent on, I'm in my master's program right now, and he was, had all the confidence in the world I'd go on to get a PhD. A good reputation is more valuable than money. You get more by giving more. Forgiveness benefits both the giver and the receiver. Be true to your word and always follow through. Learn how to listen. Most people just wait for their turn to talk. Celebrate your own accomplishments, even the very small ones. Stay curious by questioning everything. Honesty is key. Always admit when you're wrong. Music breeds happiness, especially if it's by Billy Joel. You're already ready. Life is about the journey, not the destination. True love exists, and we all can see that through Bubby and Jampa. People deserve a second chance, maybe sometimes a third and a fourth too. The little things usually end up being the big things. Invest early. Never underestimate the power of a good meal. Not every day is a good day, but there is good in every day. Animals are so special. Travel while you can and while you're young. You are never too busy for the people and the things most important to you. And most importantly, family is everything. Jampa will be so missed, but these things are a part of us, and we will honor him for the rest of our lives.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming to honor my Jampa's life. The relationship that I share with my Jampa is something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. This relationship was not like any other grandfather and grandson. We shared a really special connection on a deeper level than most. To me, he wasn't just my grandfather. He was my mentor and truly one of my best friends. Our special bond has shaped me into the man I am today and will forever be a part of me. I'm truly grateful for every moment that we've shared, and I strive to embody the values that he instilled in me. Jampa lived life to the fullest, filled with compassionate love, incredible intelligence, and a heart full of gold. He was dedicated to family, his career as a hardware store owner, and as a businessman, and his wide range of passions. From all of his different collections to traveling the world and having weird obsessions with different restaurants and food, when he found something that he was passionate about, he was fully invested. I admired him and truly looked up to him. I always wanted to make him proud. When I talk about being fully invested, this man embodied all that this meant. And this really stuck out to me with family. Family meant everything to Jampa, and even as he grew older and less mobile, his mind was so perfect, he never missed an important milestone, a first anything, and constantly checked in. Over the last 4 years while I was away at school, I made it a priority to try and speak to Jampa on the phone at least once a week. I looked forward to our conversations and continuously tried to ask how he was doing and feeling, but the entire conversation was instead focused on what was going on in my life. He was always interested in my friends, my hobbies, and my future. When I would tell him about upcoming events in my life, he would be the first to call and ask how it went. When I was invested in something, that also meant that Jampa was invested, and he was so passionate about supporting what made me happy. I will forever miss his advice, wisdom, and positive outlook on life. I could go on forever how wonderful and inspiring of a man Jampa was, and how much he meant to me, but I wanted to share some memories that were important to me. Our fishing trip to Canada, when he made me try oysters for the first time at 8 years old, and I fell in love with them. All the cruises we took when we were younger, and Jampa made me eat a 32-ounce porterhouse steak for dinner, and I got super sick. When we helped them move into their new home in Florida, and Jampa was so precise and intelligent with hanging everything in the house. Our late-night conversations on the couch in Florida. When he couldn't sleep and would come out of his room and find me on the couch, and we would sit and talk for hours. When he used to be able to get down the stairs, he would sit and watch me play the drums and try to keep the beat with his leg. Or we would find ourselves going through his different collections for hours, where I would learn details about each and every piece. When I'll be home for the summers, we try to get as many meals as we could together, whether it be Bob Chin's, any lettuce restaurant, an all-you-could-eat seafood buffet where we both got sick, Tong's Chinese, or the 5-pound seafood boil box we split this year. We shared some special times at those meals. No matter what, I filled out the bill and tip, and he always checked my math on it. I'll never forget dancing with him at Jeremy's wedding and pushing him around in his wheelchair the entire night. When I surprised him for his 89th birthday this past year, and he couldn't believe it, every place we went, he told everyone that I had surprised him. This year, I was lucky enough to join him and his friends and my mom for 3 Tuesdays with Bernie's lunch, and to see how happy it made my grandpa to spend times with his friends was inspirable. My grandfather was truly a man of great wisdom, kindness, and compassionate love. He showed me what it meant to live life to the fullest and be appreciative of every day that you have. His positive outlook on life was evident in everything that he did. His spirit will forever live on in the different lessons that he taught us all. Jamba, thank you for making this world a better place and for being my mentor and my best friend and the most amazing grandfather anyone could ask for. I'll miss you tremendously, and you will forever hold a special place in my heart. I love you, Pop.
To know Jampa was to love Jampa. Jampa was truly the most one-of-a-kind person, and I was so lucky to call him my grandpa. I could stand here all day telling stories or advice that I've learned from my pops, but I know he would tell me to get to the point. Pops, you showed me how to live life the right way. You never took a moment for granted, and I strive to live the way you do. I will always hold on to our memories, and I hope you're at rest now. I love you, Pops, and say hi to Jory for me.
Those are all just truly gorgeous tributes from the family. Children and grandchildren, thank you. Now I'm pleased to call forward a dear friend, Rabbi Meir Chai.
A personal note. The pain still contracts the heart. I never thought your exclusive smile can develop wings and soar up above. Maybe 'tis because I wanted it to stay here always and forever. What are we going to do now? It's as if the best of us are taken away. But you, dear Beryl, as I like to call him, his Hebrew name, Bernie, best isn't the category I'd put you in. You don't belong to any categories. You are unique. I'm not saying this as a statement, a subjective statement. Rather, I'm stating this through experienced observation. Working with people and community for over 4 decades. It's a verified statement to say that you are unique. The grief of your loss is orphaned. It doesn't have a place to go to be comforted. It just leaves a dumbfounded void and silent screams. A ray of light in the dark. Assured, smiling, sparkling eyes were enough to just think about and visualize. Especially it was validated by the happy, precious ponytail. Were always a place to take refuge in and get a relief of encouragement to do, to continue. You are a unique, beloved friend, because I've never seen another so aligned as a person here on earth. Your faith, your beautiful, ingenious mind, and most importantly, your actions and your family, especially your real partner in life, Sharon. A love story. As someone who cares very much about the future of our community, our people, our land, our world, your passing is a clear message. The task is to become like you, to generate your uniqueness in each of us, as you always provided us with the model that if something has to get done, if change must occur, just do it yourself. And with the help of God, as you always made sure to state. Battle Yankel, Bernie, thank you for the years we had you with us in this world. I hope, I pray, and I trust that you will continue to be with us and enlighten us with your brilliant smile from above. Godspeed, pal, chum, friend. Shalom, chaver.
Thank you, Rabbi Chai. O merciful God, strengthen those who mourn and who have expressed that mourning so eloquently and movingly, and strengthen all those who mourn. Help them to look beyond this moment. Help them to realize that death does not destroy the bonds of life eternal and love eternal. Sustain them with the knowledge of our faith that you will not abandon our souls that you will not allow your faithful ones to suffer oblivion. For you, O eternal God, have taught us derech chaim, the way of life. Through you, our refuge, our rock, we gain eternity. And we say, Amen. We now rise for the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kafei Hashchina, B'ma'alo Kedoshim U'Tehorim, Kezohar Akiyam Asirim, Et Nishmat, Beryl ben Avraham, Shahalach Le'olamo, Began Eden Tehei Menuchato, Anabal Harachamim Hasirehu, Beset Kenafecha Le'olamim, Utzor B'tzor HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuach B'shalom, Al Mishkavo, V'nomar, Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence, with the holy and the pure who shine like the light of the heavens. To the soul of Beryl ben Avraham, Bernard Bernie Turek, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen. You may be seated.
The interment will take place at Shalom Memorial Park in Arlington Heights. For those of you joining the procession, we'll make sure that you receive an orange funeral sticker that'll be placed on the inside portion of your front windshield, as well as some of the cars will be having magnetic flags on top of your vehicles. And please keep in mind two important safety features while in procession. First is to use your bright headlights and emergency flashers at all times, and stay as close as safety permits to the car in front of you to avoid large gaps, which can be dangerous, especially at the intersections. The Shiva will be observed at the Fine Residence, 680 Carriage Way in Deerfield, following the interment today until 8 p.m., and then again tomorrow, Thursday, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we will ask that all of you that are going to the cemetery in procession, please go directly to your vehicles after the service. And for those of you not going to the cemetery, please exit the parking lot as quickly as possible. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Turek's loving grandchildren to serve as pallbearers: Jeremy, Dina, Kira, Allie, Josh, and Dylan. Ask everyone else to please rise in silent tribute as we escort the casket from the chapel.